We used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Bara'at. I have, however, forgotten it with the exception of this, which I remember out of it.
Those chapters are completely missing. Is the Quran corrupted?
Aisha radiallahu anha reported that it had been revealed in the Quran that 10 clear sucklings make the marriage unlawful. Then it was abrogated by 5 sucklings, and Allah's Apostle sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, and it was before that time found in the Holy Quran.
Where's the 5? We should see the 5 clear sucklings in the Quran.
So, what's going on here?
What's going on here?
Are there chapters completely missing from the Quran? Why is Aisha radiallahu anha saying there is revelation in the Quran about 5 sucklings? Where are these verses?
Where are these verses? They are probably in the middle pages, second paragraph of the Injil.
Jahil admi. In this video, we will debunk any arguments attacking the Quran's preservation, and we will actually use the same hadith that this clown thought he was using to checkmate Muslims with to demonstrate how not only is the Quran better preserved than the Bible, but even the hadith are. Now, I wasn't planning on dragging the Bible into this discussion. This is not whataboutism.
What about the Bible? What about the Bible?
On somebody and so on and so forth.
This is simply to demonstrate how fake Christians like this have a PhD in double standards when it comes to the Quran versus the Bible. It's like how the evil mother-in-law views their daughter-in-law versus their own daughter. If you're a Christian watching, don't click away thinking this Muslim is just here to bash your religion. This video is to show you why you shouldn't trust people who lie in the name of Jesus. This video is not an exercise in showmanship and clownery.
Abu Bakr sent for me when the people of Yo Mama, since they want to talk about mamas now,
So apparently YouTube does not like me anymore, probably because of my upload schedule, and is not going to spread this video further than to my loyal viewers. So if you all can start sharing this to new viewers so we can grow this channel, that would be great. If you have any lovely fan mail you want to send me but you are too shy to write in the comments, feel free to email me at dawahforamerica@gmail.com. This video is not going to address ahruf and qira'at. We will do that in a different video as part of an ongoing series comparing the Quran and the Bible's preservation. Feel free to watch the first video if you haven't so far. Here is a simple principle. If you are going to use Islamic sources, you gotta use all the Islamic sources. You can't cherry pick what you want and pretend the rest don't exist.
hey, look, Muslims don't know that, but Islamophobes, they know the Islamic sources, I'm telling you.
No, you can't even read the Islamic sources. You end up reading the translations the way you read your own Bible. You read what you want and ignore everything else that contradicts what you want. To say that the Quran has been corrupted requires proof. What verses? What chapters? Are there verses in the Quran today that shouldn't be there? Are there chapters in the Quran that should be there? Bringing up this hadith from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari is not going to work in your favor at all. But before we delve into why this is a very poor argument to argue Quranic corruption, let's first understand the Muslim point of view. Not every revelation to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was meant to be in the final Quran. This is the concept of naskh, or abrogation, which you can further learn by viewing this video made by the brother at Arabic 101, explaining abrogation in all its instances and why it's necessary. The angel Jibreel alayhi salam would review the Quran with the Prophet every Ramadan and reviewed it with him twice in his final year. Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, would also be present for this review. In this review, the Muslims would know which verses are meant to be in the Quran and which verses are not. Allah says in the Quran, if we ever abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten, we replace it with a better or similar one. Do you not know that Allah is most capable of everything? So when Allah wants to abrogate a verse, Allah causes it to be forgotten because He is capable of doing so. This in and of itself is miraculous when thousands of Sahaba are memorizing the Quran orally, word by word, letter by letter. Imagine only 20 people with a skill set similar to this.
इससे قبل
يهدي به الله
इससे قبل
يا أهل الكتاب
इससे قبل
من الذين قالوا
इससे قبل
بما نقضهم
इससे قبل
لقد أخذ الله
इससे قبل
يا أيها الذين
इससे قبل
الذين كفروا
दो सफ़े बाद
فإنوا على
दो सफ़े बाद
وإذا ناديتم
दो सफ़े बाद
حسبوا أن لا تكون
5 सफ़े बाद
وإذا قيل لهم تعالوا
For all of them to collectively forget only the abrogated verses is miraculous. We all probably saw the match between Egypt and Argentina. Imagine we all collectively forget the moment of the match where the goal was disallowed. I'm not saying people pretended that it didn't happen. I mean, you see a phenomenon where everyone genuinely cannot recall that this ever happened. Or they recall it happening, but they have no idea when or how it happened. I'm not talking about conflicting details. I'm saying everyone is in agreement that they cannot remember. This is not the Mandela effect. It's not the case where a collective group of people remembered a detail wrong. It's that they can't remember a massive moment ever happening at all. The hadith says, we used to recite a surah which resembled in length and severity to Surah Bara'at. I have, however, forgotten it. How did everyone forget the same surah? We know that when it came to the slightest of dialectical syllable differences, Islamic history records disagreements among prominent companions, to the point that we even have recorded that the students of companions began fighting each other over it. Generally a plus point in transparency, but these buffoons try to manipulate transparency into some form of cover-up that they then try to milk. Why don't we see Abdullah ibn Mas'ud fighting tooth and nail for these missing chapters? Why don't we see a huge committee gathering together to settle the dispute of whether such a chapter should be part of the Quran or not? You know, the way we have Christian councils coming together to dispute and decide which books are canon 3.5 centuries after the events took place. It's because this was never an issue. These verses that were abrogated were never an issue. Not for the Prophet Muhammad, not for his companions, and not for the scholars of Islam. But see, if you didn't know that, which most of you don't, then you can let anybody come and write the narrative for you. So a hack like this guy will come and tell you that, oh, early Muslims were fighting over the Quran. See, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said, don't hand your Qurans over. Uthman had to burn all your Qurans. There were so many disagreements. Look, entire chapters were missing, even though the abrogation hadith here has absolutely nothing to do with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's reservations and Uthman radiallahu anhu's decision to burn the variant readings of the Qur'ans. Again, watch this video for more context. But they are banking on your ignorance. They are hoping you don't know anything about Islamic history so they can create their own history and sell it to you as Islam's history. Even though, to be quite frank, even their butchered and fabricated version of Islamic history is better than their best version of Christian history. In case you're still wondering about abrogation, let me make it simpler for you. The Quran was revealed over 23 years. Some verses were stories of the past. Other verses were very particular verses for a specific scenario the Prophet was in. Verses in Surah Araf were specific to the Battle of Badr. Some verses in Surah Tawbah
No! God, please, no! No!
are talking about Abu Bakr and the Prophet ﷺ migrating from Mecca to Medina. Not every verse, though, was intended by Allah to be in the final Quran, and he took care of it himself, as mentioned earlier. Think of it like a movie where you have the theatrical version released for the public, and then you have the director's cut. The director's cut may not be meant for public release, but for a selected group of people. In the case of the Quran, it's the Sahaba who lived through the onset of Islam. They got to recite the Quran as well as other verses that were relevant for them. However, the other verses were not intended to be in the final version that is meant for us. Allah took care of abrogation by causing the verses to be forgotten, as mentioned in this verse. Islamic history attests to this with the simple fact that there's no Quran today with extra verses of these. Even the recitations of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu we have today don't have them. There's no old uncovered manuscripts, including the pre Uthmanic burnings where any such verse exists. Nowhere in Islamic sources were there fights or arguments over these verses. The same can absolutely not be said about the Bible, but we will leave that for a different video. Abrogation is an airtight concept. The Sahaba, unlike their church fathers, corrupted scribes, or anonymous Bible authors, did such a fantastic job with the preservation of the Quran that these fools today cannot point to a single verse and say, this was added in, or this is missing. They have to keep grasping at straws.
Where's the 5? We should see the 5 clear sucklings in the Quran. Marshall, you think it's in the Quran? No, it's not. It don't exist.
We already explained abrogation, man. I don't know what's wrong with this guy.
But they might say, no, abrogation though. It was abrogated. Allah substituted. Allah didn't mean for that to be preserved. Unfortunately, Aisha says that Allah's apostle died. And it was before that time, before he died, it was in the Quran. Which means, guess what? Abrogation can't happen without the prophet.
A lot of times we wonder what goes on in these people's heads. I can't tell you because I'm not a delusional hack. But look at this face right here. This is the face of a guy who either really needs to go to the bathroom because he's eaten curry he could not handle before his presentation, or he's just so anxiously excited thinking he just ended Islam, like he unlocked a cheat code to now convert 2 billion Muslims altogether. Remember how they always cry about Jesus coming in the dreams of Muslims? Maybe he thinks his fake Christian divine Jesus can finally retire now since he doesn't need to show up in all our dreams to tell us to worship a man. Focus, brother, focus. So there's a short answer for his argument and there's a long answer. The short answer is honestly enough to make him go away the way you swat a mosquito away, but the long answer may actually exterminate their whole breeding site. The short answer is just read the English translation. Allah's Apostle ﷺ died, and it was before that time found in the Holy Quran. Not during that time or after that time, but before that time. So you wouldn't find it in today's Quran if the hadith says it was before the time of the Prophet's death found in the Quran. So honestly, this is the extent of this fool's knowledge. So this honestly should be good enough. I don't know why nobody in the intellectual crowd of his spoke up and asked him on what he was displaying on his screen, but I don't expect much from such intellect anyway. However, let's go with the longer explanation. The explanation him and his people have no clue about. This isn't for him. This is for you Muslims who actually want to engage with the truth. The Arabic in this hadith does not have the words before that time. The Arabic actually shows present tense. So it would be, it is from what is recited in the Quran. And see, if this fool actually knew even a basic level of his subject matter, rather than just being some rental apologist for hire, he would have pointed that out. He would have said, look how Islamic scholars mislead you by translating falsely. Now, I have in the past mentioned bad translations of Sunnah.com. They haven't translated this accurately. They have, however, contextualized this translation in lieu of other hadith. What do I mean? Let's take a step back. The hadith was narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha to her student Amrah bin Abdul Rahman. Amrah bin Abdul Rahman narrated this to 3 people: Yahya bin Sa'id al-Ansari, Qasim bin Muhammad bin Abu Bakr, and Abdullah bin Abi Bakr Muhammad. These 3 then narrate the hadith to around 3 other separate people before it reaches Imam Muslim and Imam Ibn Majah through separate chains. However, the hadith stems from these 3 narrators who got the hadith from Amrah bint Abdul Rahman, who got it from Aisha radiallahu anha. The hadith we read was narrated from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr Muhammad. If you read the narration from Yahya, it reads, there was revealed in the Holy Quran 10 clear sucklings and then 5 clear sucklings. No mention of the verse being recited during the time of the Prophet's death. But then the narration from Qasim ibn Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr gives us the clearest picture that can allow us to reconcile everything else together. Because in his narration compiled by Ibn Majah, it says, one of the things that Allah revealed in the Quran and then abrogated was that nothing makes marriage prohibited except 10 breastfeedings or 5 well-known breastfeedings, meaning both were abrogated. The wording, it is from what is recited in the Quran, can only be found from Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr Muhammad. But even this can be further contextualized when you read the exegesis of the hadith from classical Islamic scholars. Imam an-Nawawi states that Aisha radiallahu anha's statement, then the Messenger of God, may God bless him and grant him peace, passed away while they were still being recited, is with the ya of recited pronounced with a dhamma. So yuqra'u, not yaqra'u. Its meaning is that the abrogation of the 5 breastfeedings was very late in its revelation, to the point that the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, passed away while some people were reciting the 5 breastfeedings and considering it part of the recited Quran, because the abrogation had not yet reached them due to its recent revelation. When the abrogation reached them, after that they changed their minds and agreed that this should not be recited. We have the narrations down to the very syllable. And just to wrap it up and put the icing on the cake, Ibn Jurayj narrates from Nafi', who narrates from Salim bin Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, the grandson of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu and son of Abdullah ibn Umar, who would have had access to people alive during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's death, who tells us, verily 10 sucklings were mentioned in the Quran as proof of foster relations. Subsequently it was changed to 5 sucklings. It was in the book of Allah, but the part of it that was abrogated while the Prophet ﷺ was alive. In fact, while you enjoy the icing on the cake, let me make a whole other cake for you. If Aisha radiallahu anha supposedly maintained that there are verses on suckling that are supposed to be in the Quran, how come nobody told Aisha radiallahu anha about that? There were 2 major Quranic preservation procedures that took place during her lifetime. She was alive when Uthman radiallahu anhu burned the variant readings and standardized the Quran. Where was she in this? Why didn't she speak out like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and disagree with Uthman radiallahu anhu's codex? You can't even tell me that they told her to keep quiet and erased her protest from Islamic history, because Islamic history has something far more controversial documented. After the assassination of Uthman radiallahu anhu, she came out with an army to face the Khalifa, demanding justice for Uthman radiallahu anhu, an act of open rebellion against the Khalifa of the time, Ali radiallahu anhu. So clearly, she is more than capable of raising her voice when she needs to. The low IQ apologists can come up with whatever they want. Their version of events do not and will never make any sense. Islamic history is too comprehensive for them. It destroys every accusation their gutter-infested brains can come up with. Islamic sources wipes the floor with them. And this is why they are no match for us. We know exactly who reported what and where the differences came from. I gave you entire chains. We know who Qasim bin Muhammad bin Abu Bakr is. We know who Aisha radiallahu anha is. We know who Salim ibn Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab is. We know who Nafi' is. We know who Imam Bukhari, Muslim, and Ibn Majah are. We don't know who the Holy Spirit is. We don't know who wrote the Gospels. We don't know if they have any connection with the actual disciples of Jesus other than faith. We don't know anything about what the disciples of Jesus thought about the Gospels. We don't know what Matthew thought about the Gospel of Mark, even though he wholesale copied it. We don't know what Mark thought about the Gospel of Luke. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who were from the first eyewitnesses. Who is us? Who are the many? Which first eyewitnesses?
I don't know.
Now again, to be fair, the Christian will have responses. They will have better reasons than the way I'm putting it out there. We've gone in far more detail in this video here, but the matter still stands. If you are to employ equal standards between hadith and the Bible, we have far more solid chains than you. The Gospel's hadith rating would fall well short of authentic or sahih. You have no business lying about Quranic preservation when this is what you are propagating to the world. You're not leaving any room for honest discussion here. You're just wasting our time and making your already not so smart audience even dumber. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are wondering about what happened between Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and Uthman radiallahu anhu, or why did Uthman radiallahu anhu burn the earliest Qur'ans, feel free to watch the video here. Please like, share, and subscribe.